OU softball can win the regular season SEC crown this weekend in Gainesville, Florida. Boy, I knew that would feel good to say. That feels really, really good to say. But it's true. Oklahoma on the verge of winning the SEC in just year one of the conference. OU currently has a game-and-a-half lead on the rest of the field. Here's what the standings currently look like. OU has a 1.5-game lead over Texas A&M. They've got a 2-game lead on Tennessee, and both A&M and Tennessee will play each other. So a lot of different scenarios where OU is crowned the SEC champ. So we can make this super complicated with the different scenarios that need to happen, but I appreciate Redneck Peril, a 5-star in the comment section, no doubt about it, for making it as simple as possible for all of us. Texas A&M needs to sweep Tennessee and have us lose our series or else win their series and have OU get swept. Same wish list for Tennessee as for A&M, except if they want to be sole champs, they need both series to be sweeps. Texas needs to sweep Kentucky and have us get swept and to have Tennessee win their series, but not have Tennessee sweep. And his translation there is, so you're telling me there's a chance. And Florida, better luck next year, ladies. Florida kind of already eliminated from the SEC regular season crown, which is a surprise to me, and it definitely would have been a surprise to me before the season because I thought this series was going to have a lot on the line when OU traveled to Florida, and it does. It has a lot on the line. OU can win the SEC regular season crown. But I thought Florida was going to be right there as well. In my preseason predictions, I thought that the winner of this series would win the SEC regular season title. That hasn't been the case. Florida hasn't had the SEC schedule that maybe they wanted to or the run through the SEC that they wanted to. Still a very good team, still going to be very difficult to win this series. But it's all on Oklahoma. Your magic number right now is 2, and if you just take care of business, all the scenarios that are out there, you win the series, you win in 2 or 3, we're going to be celebrating an SEC championship this weekend. And hey, look, I get it. The national championship is what we all want the most, what we'll all celebrate the most, what we're all really playing for. But let's not act like a regular season SEC crown in your first year of the conference wouldn't be sweet. It would be absolutely sweet. For all the trash talk that you heard to even the back-to-back series losses that you had, and maybe as recently as a few weeks ago, you didn't think that this was possible, it would be very sweet. It would be very awesome. It would be a loud message to the SEC that you knew Oklahoma was coming into the conference, but Oklahoma's already winning this conference, and they're going to own this conference for years to come. I still want the national championship more than an SEC crown, but an SEC crown in year one would be really, really sweet for these Oklahoma Sooners. This team is peaking right now, and that's very, very good news. I think it. I believe you guys think it. Patty Gasso has said it multiple times that she believes this team is peaking. But what does that actually mean? I think we kind of get the gist of it. They are starting to trend towards playing their best softball at the most important time. And that's kind of it. You can look at it numbers-wise. You can look at it eye test-wise. But it's very obvious over the course of the last 2 SEC series that that's been 2 of the best weekends that OU's had over the course of the past month and a half, 2 months that we've seen from OU in SEC play. And this is something that this program has done more times than not, more than any other program here over the past several years. Oklahoma finds a way to play its best softball when it matters most. And if you just look at things, it seems pretty obvious. Ella Parker had a couple of home runs this past weekend. This is the best stretch that she's had since the start of SEC play. She looks more comfortable at the plate. She's looking like the Ella Parker that we saw earlier in the season. Ailana Agbayani had her best game as a Sooner on Friday night. She had her best weekend as a Sooner against Texas. It was so good that she was just named SEC Player of the Week. Nellie's doing her thing. Gabby Garcia's doing her thing. Cassidy Pickering is putting up All-American numbers this year. This lineup, their approach at the plate, how they're attacking opposing hitters, This is the best offense that we've seen from Oklahoma, maybe all year, but certainly since SEC play. And it's not just the fact that they're hitting home runs, they're hitting balls in the gap, they're getting on base. Again, you can just look at the numbers, the number of base hits, back-to-back games this weekend with 10 hits, the runs that were scored against a very, very good Texas pitching staff. But it's also the quality of at-bats that they're having. Tegan Cavan, threw over 90 pitches in the first 2 innings on Sunday. They are getting good at-bats. They are being patient at the plate. They are waiting on their pitch, and they are hitting the ball hard when they see their pitch. I'm very, very, very happy, very, very excited with where this offense is at. And it is a huge reason as to why we feel like this team is peaking at the right time. And of course, that's just the offense. How about the pitching staff? Sam Landry continues to do her thing, but Kierston Deal just had her best starts in an OU uniform. Not just this year, but her entire career with what she did Saturday against Texas. Isabella Smith just had her best start in all of SEC play. So it's the offense, it's the pitching. This team is really starting to come together, really starting to look like the best team in college softball, but it does not mean that they're a finished product. We need to continue to see this team peak and continue to look better and better in a series against Florida that is going to be very difficult. So to the conversation that we've been having for several weeks now, who's the number 2 arm on the staff? Now, it's going to take a bit of a different tone today because the tone for the past several weeks has been, who's it going to be? I mean, Sam Landry's really good, but who's that number 2 pitcher going to be? Are they going to have that pitcher at any point this season? Well, I feel better about this conversation than I probably have at any point in SEC play. So the tone is different. The tone is more exciting. The tone is more happy. Who is the number 2 pitcher going to be? Because it kind of feels like at this point, at this moment, you may have some options. Just mentioned Kierston Deal and the great start that she had against Texas, but don't forget a few weeks back, she had the great start against Tennessee as well. Not that it's necessarily been consistent for KD, and that's what she's got to work on, but she's had some incredibly high moments in SEC play this year. In fact, I don't think it's a hot take at all to say that outside Sam Landry, the best moments that you've had in the circle, throughout conference play has definitely been Kierston Deal. So she's an option, clearly. But what about Isabella Smith? She came in against a very good Texas lineup and delivered 3 very solid innings on Sunday. And we saw what happened when Isabella Smith wasn't in the game on Sunday. So who do we count on? What do you do moving forward? Who's the number 2 arm? Who's going to get the start in Game 2 this weekend? Well, at this point, Peyton Monticelli, as we know, has been used more in a relief role. And though I do still really like Audrey Lowry and the upside that is there, and maybe she can even play a big role at some point this year, you've got to point out that in her last 2 appearances, against Texas on Sunday and against South Carolina the Sunday before that, she's recorded exactly 1 out in her last 2 outings. So not exactly playing or having her best softball right now in the circle. So I would say right now, the 2 most likely options for your number 2 arm, Kierston Deal and Isabella Smith. Given the complete game that Kierston Deal delivered, given the complete game that she had against Tennessee as well, I think as of right now, Kierston Deal, KD, is your number 2 arm. And as we get deeper and deeper into the season, as we get to the conference tournament, as we get to the postseason as well, I would say right now that Sam Landry clearly is still your ace. Kierston Deal, your number 2 arm. And if you want to start a pitcher in the circle, not named Deal and not named Landry, I think today that pitcher would be Isabella Smith. And the beautiful thing is, it doesn't necessarily matter who it is, if it's Deal or if it's Smith or heck, even if it's Lowry at this point. OU continuing to find that number 2 arm is going to be huge. It's going to be massive in terms of OU pursuing its 5th consecutive national championship. All right, how about an underrated key for this weekend? Talked about this team peaking, talked about this team playing some of its best softball of the entire year, certainly its best softball in SEC play. Most impressive series sweep that we've seen in softball. Yeah, that was what Oklahoma did last weekend to Texas. But here's the thing, and it actually makes things even more exciting. Yeah, it was great that you swept Texas, and you did a lot of really good things. But there was also a lot of uncharacteristic mistakes as well. As impressive as it was, it can actually be a whole lot better moving forward. And to be frank, it needs to be a whole lot better moving forward when we're talking about base running. So this team can actually be better and maybe even a lot better in some areas. And an underrated key that I'm looking forward to this weekend is the base running side of things. Because way too many times against Texas, you had runners being called out for leaving early, whether it was a stolen base attempt or whether it was on a sac fly. You had a runner at one point kill an inning because, she got caught creeping too far off third base, got caught in a rundown. Base running mistakes like that, they can't happen in the postseason, and they certainly can't happen on the road against a very, very good Florida team. So that's an underrated key for me, is that the base running it's got to be a lot better. You were good enough last weekend to overcome that, and that's great. We think you're peaking. Things can be even better. That's exciting. But the base running cannot be an issue like it was this past weekend. Can't leave too early, can't get picked off and rundowns, all of that. An underrated key for me this weekend, something that you may not watch a lot of, but let's not talk about big base running mistakes after any of these games. All right, so this is a fun conversation. Cotton Bowl game, playing at the Shoe. Patty Gasso revealed last weekend that Ohio State reached out to Oklahoma saying, hey, we saw what Cal and Stanford did at Stanford Stadium there. How about the Oklahoma Sooners? We're just, trying to feel out, see if you're interested in playing a game in the Horseshoe, which I think would be great. I think it'd be fantastic. I'd love to see OU play at a football stadium. I think wherever you play it, they're going to set the attendance record. I would rather Oklahoma play that game in Norman or a little bit closer to Norman, but it's still a fun idea. We've been talking about this for a year or two now, and it was also brought up at the press conference setting about how about playing Texas in the Cotton Bowl? Could that work out? Before I give my take and drop your thoughts in the comments, of course on everything, but I want to hear your thoughts on a Cotton Bowl game, OU playing at a football stadium, and where you would want to see it. Bob Stoops comes on the ref a couple of times a week. He comes on my show Thursdays at 4:45, so be sure to check that out. Here's what Bob said on the thought of Oklahoma softball playing a game at the Cotton Bowl.
I think it's a fantastic idea. Why not? I mean, everybody loves the Cotton Bowl. I always did. Nothing wrong with spending a day or two down in that area. So, get 100,000 people or more in there. If they could fit a diamond in there, why not? And if you didn't have a fence, wouldn't you like to see one just get hit and go 100 yards?
Yeah. Just let it roll.
Yeah, somebody just out there chasing it the whole time. But, no, I think it's a great idea. You would think you could make that work.
So obviously a really fun thought, a really fun thing to think about. Several of you have been to the OU-Texas game before. I'm sure there's nothing like it. It's the best rivalry in all of college football, in my opinion. And no, I don't think that you'd necessarily get 92,000 in that place like you do for an OU-Texas football game. But a softball game would set the attendance record. It would be an incredible atmosphere. The logistics of it, well, clearly that's the problem and the biggest reason why it probably hasn't happened for OU softball yet. So if you can find the logistics, be it at the Cotton Bowl, Owen Field, AT&T Stadium, whatever, I'm all for it. Sounds like Patty Gasso is all for it. And I think Joe Castiglione will make it happen if the logistics for this game happens. Here's what I think. And I haven't been told this. I don't have any intel behind this. But I think in the next 5 years, heck, I think in the next 4 years, OU will play a game at a football stadium somewhere, and they're going to set the attendance record. That's what I think is going to happen. Might it be in Norman on Owen Field? That would be my preference. Might it be somewhere in the DFW Metroplex? I think that that's probably the next likely destination of this thing. So whether they play it at AT&T Stadium or the Cotton Bowl or Globe Life Field or wherever they play it, I do think OU is going to play a softball game in a big-time venue. The ticket sales would be crazy. The attention would be crazy. What it would do for the sport, what it would do for the growth of the sport. Oklahoma is clearly the ideal team to have it wherever you play it. I think it's going to happen in the next 4 years. I really, really do. I think someone is going to be able to figure out the logistics. I'm interested to see what those logistics look like, but I'm calling it right now. We're going to be talking about Oklahoma playing in a college football stadium or a pro ballpark, pro stadium somewhere, and I cannot wait to see it. All right, 3 things on the Florida Gators. Gators are 41-12 on the season, 12-9 in SEC play. Lost 2 of 3 to LSU. The game on Monday night, they actually got run-ruled 10-2 in 6 innings. I contend this is going to be a very tough series. I love the way that OU is peaking, but at the same time, its last road series, it didn't play its best softball, though that does feel like it was a turning point of the season, potentially, that series loss at Alabama. It's going to be difficult. Florida really wants to win this series and get some momentum heading into the SEC tournament and heading into the postseason. Because remember, it was Florida, Texas, Oklahoma, whatever order you had those 3 going into the season. There were a lot of people that picked Florida to win the SEC. People picked Florida to win the national championship. So they came in with super high expectations. Maybe the highest expectation that Florida has had for a softball team in the last few years. They're a very good program. They know how to win. It's going to be a crazy crowd out there in Gainesville. They're not playing their best softball right now, but you know that they're looking at this weekend as an opportunity to get things turned around. So what's the strength for Florida? Well, again, I think all around they're a very good softball team. But I'm going to say the offense is the strength for Florida. And they've got some names that you know. Of course, former Sooner, Jocelyn Erickson, who was SEC Player of the Year last year. But this is a very, very good offensive team, and OU's pitching staff is going to have its work cut out for them. Second in the SEC with a .342 team batting average. Second in slugging percentage. Fourth in on-base percentage. They're second in home runs right now. Just 1 home run, actually, behind Oklahoma. So the story for Florida's offense is they've got big hitters in the middle of the order. They got hitters at the top of the order that can really run, that can really get on base, table setters for those big power hitters like Jocelyn Erickson in the middle of the order. You've got to be careful around this Florida offense. Maybe there's some other areas where you can debate if this is where they're best or this is where their strength is. But when I look at Florida, I look at this offense, a ton of speed, a ton of power, a ton of average. They get on base. They manufacture runs. The strength of this Gators team, and the thing you need to know that they do really, really well, they hit the softball really, really well. All right, where's the weakness for Florida? I don't know if I'd say anything is a weakness. There are certainly some things that they're better at than others, so maybe it's where they're most gettable coming into this series. And if I had to say Florida is gettable anywhere, I guess I would say just kind of the overall pitching staff. They're 8th in the SEC right now with a 2.86 team ERA, and they've got some names that you know we are very familiar and got very familiar with. Keegan Rothrock last year, who just a very, very young pitcher at the time. But of course, she had an awesome Women's College World Series and really pushed OU to the brink. She is 11-5 this season, 3.08 ERA for the Gators. She started 18 games so far this year. She's got 7 complete games. Ava Brown, Caitlin Oxley, a couple of players that you need to know. Brown is a sophomore. Oxley is a freshman. Ava Brown has a 2.54 ERA, 10-1 on the season. Caitlin Oxley, 8-5 on the season with a 2.63 ERA. But Keegan Rothrock is the name you know, and expect to see her maybe not just once, but maybe even twice against this OU lineup this weekend. Player to watch for the Gators. Again, this is one of those teams that you know a lot of their players because, well, they've been there a while. They got big transfer portal additions. You faced them last year in big-time games. So you'll remember the name Riley Holtorf, who they got via the transfer portal, one of the bigger portal ads of the last cycle. You'll remember the name Reagan Walsh. Of course, you remember Jocelyn Erickson, Corby Otis, a very good player as well. But the player I think to keep an eye on is Kendra Falby, who's an outfielder and the leadoff hitter for Florida. And I talked just a minute ago about they've got table setters at the top of the order. Well, that's what she is. She leads the team in batting average, .456, and there's only 2 players in the SEC right now who have a higher batting average than Kendra Falby. That's Sierra Sacco at Mississippi State. That's Bree Ellis at Arkansas. She leads the team in several offensive categories, such as average, such as hits, such as runs scored, and yes, stolen bases as well. Kendra Falby, a speedster in the outfield, but certainly a speedster at the top of the order as well. Now, Florida does have speed throughout the order, but Falby, 34 of 38 in stolen base attempts. So she hits the ball hard, she gets on base, and once she gets on base, she sets the table for those big hitters behind her, and she is very likely to steal bases once she gets on as well. So that's the player to watch out for. You got to keep her off the base paths because she sets everything up for the rest of this Florida offense. And once she gets on base, she's an absolute terror. Player to watch for the Florida Gators, Kendra Falby there in the leadoff spot. All right, let's hear from the GOAT, Patty Gasso herself. First on what it exactly means when a softball team is peaking.
No, it's definitely hard work that goes into it, and it's just patience. You know, you go through kind of move up and then you'll go down. We were kind of doing a little bit of that this year. I think the response after the Alabama weekend, I think that really was so uncharacteristic of us out there. And I think after that, the attitude was, okay, let's just do this right. And that's what I've been feeling. And we've been in some, I don't know how many one-run games we've been in. It feels like a lot. And we're on the right side of those. So that is telling. That's a big telling sign of a team as well. So I like where we're going right now.
And on that, what it looks like when this OU team is peaking.
The flow is good, so everything's working, and I feel like the lineup has really found each other. So it's passing the bat. There's no holes. I felt like we had some holes or some let off the gas a bit. So I feel like the lineup is just really merging well together. I think KD and her performance was big for us. I think it helped Bella Smith have a good outing, and so it just, when everything just seems to start clicking together is what we've been feeling.
Finally, here's Patty Gasso's thoughts on the Florida Gators.
Good, really good. Power, speed. They're just good in every facet of the game. So it's definitely going to be a tough one for sure. And I know they'll bring the fans out. I can't remember the last time we played there. It was a long time ago. So I think it'll be just a wonderful environment, and he's got players that we're familiar with, and a lot of our players have played travel ball with their team, so we know each other pretty well. It's gonna be some fun softball to watch.
All right, prediction time. What's your predictions? Drop them in the comments. What's going to happen? Is OU going to be SEC champs? Do we get hats and T-shirts this weekend? I sure hope so. I think it's going to be a really tough, really difficult series, and I think that this is going to be a very good test for this team as we close out the regular season. Now, where OU sits right now, I don't think that they're going to have to go on the road in regionals. I don't think that they're going to have to go on the road in super regionals, and I don't think, clearly, they're going to have to go on the road in the Women's College World Series. So I think once we get to the postseason past the SEC tournament, OU is going to be used to playing in front of its home fans. But I do like the spot of this team playing on the road just once more in front of a hostile crowd where they haven't always been the best version of themselves. Again, the last road series that they had was at Alabama. They lost that series 2-3, and that really felt like it was a turning point of the season. At least it feels like that today. So let's see this team play a lot better on the road in front of a hostile environment. I think Oklahoma is going to win Game 1 behind a fantastic effort from Sam Landry. I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be another stressful game. But I think Oklahoma is going to win Game 1 of the series 3-2 to inch even closer to being SEC champs. Now, this is where it gets difficult because maybe even if OU were to, win Game 1 but lose Game 2, maybe still somehow mathematically they're guaranteed to win the SEC. I don't know. But I think Kierston Deal is going to start Game 2. And here's the good news. The good news is is that I think KD is going to give you a very, very solid outing. I don't think it's going to be as good as the Tennessee start. I don't think it's necessarily going to be as good as the Texas start, but I think Kierston Deal is going to give you a chance to win. The only problem is I still think Florida's really, really good, and you're going to have to play really well to win this series. I think Florida evens it up in game 2, and though KD pitches well, Florida's going to win this game 5-4 to even up the series. So here's what I think it is. I think we go into Saturday looking at some scenarios. Hey, if this team loses, if this happens, we can win the SEC. But ultimately, I think going into Saturday, if OU beats Florida, no matter what else happens, they're SEC champs. And guess what? I think OU is going to win Game 3, and on the final day of the regular season, they are going to win the SEC crown. This is actually what I picked before the season, for OU to win the SEC on the last day of the regular season. The only difference is that I thought Florida was going to be tied with Oklahoma in the standings at that point. That's not the case. They're battling against Texas A&M. They're battling against Tennessee. Texas has very small percentage points. I don't think that they'll be in it by Saturday. But behind a great effort by Sam Landry and maybe some others in relief, heck, maybe Sam Landry doesn't start. Maybe she comes in relief. I think Oklahoma wins an epic game, a tight game, 6-5 game. We're SEC champs. We're excited. We think that they're peaking even more. Oklahoma gets a very, very impressive road series win against a very good Florida team. And we got new hats. We've got new T-shirts. We're celebrating winning the SEC in year 1. That's what I got. 3 close softball games coming up for you this weekend. What are your thoughts? Who's going to win the series? How are you feeling going into the final regular season series of the year? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And as always, thank you for watching.